Welcome to this week's Gull Mouth Action podcast, where we take a look at all the latest goings on at Brighton Hove Albion, Crawley Town and Sport in Sussex. I'm Matt Pole and I'm joined by Crawley Town expert Mark Dunford, as well as Sam Morton, who covers both Brighton Hove Albion and the Reds. The Seagulls were held to a 1-1 draw at home to Friday amid a torrential downpour on Sunday afternoon. We'll pick over the bones of Albion's draw against the Whites and reflect on yet another tumultuous week at Crawley Town. You can read all the stories we were talking about with videos and pictures online at sussexworld.co.uk/sport. And you can check out other great videos on shotstv.com and Freeview channel 276. Evan Ferguson gave Brighton a deserved first half lead against Fulham before João Paulinho struck back for the visitors in the second half. Sum that result up for us, Sam. How would you rate that performance?
Yeah, it was a good performance for Brighton, but not the result they wanted or deserved. Really, and Roberto De Zerbi was really frustrated after the game that they didn't manage to seal the 3 points because they're on a bit of a winless run at the moment. They haven't won since the game over Bournemouth at the end of September. So it's been quite a while since they've won in the league. So it was a game that De Zerbi really wanted to win. He said after the Ajax game that they really need to follow that up with a win over Fulham, and it started really well. It was a great goal from Evan Ferguson, who ended his kind of mini goal drought. As a real instinctive finish that kind of showed his class, really. And you just felt they needed to add to that, get a second goal and a third one and just kill the game. But all the while that it was 1-0, it was always a danger that Fulham could get back into it. And they obviously did. They scored a cracking goal at the beginning of the second half, and Brighton weren't able to retake the lead, and a really frustrating result, really, at home against a team that they really wanted to beat or should be beating if they're going to stake a claim for the top 5, top 6 again.
Well, post-match, Roberto De Zerbi said Albion lost 2 points against Fulham, and by the sound of it, Sam, it sounds as if you agree with that assessment.
Yeah, no, 100% I agree with that. Yeah, I think as De Zerbi said, they were the best team for 90%, or at least 90% of the game, and they really should have taken the 3 points. When you look at the whole performance, I think De Zerbi said that it was really just a 5 to 10 minute period of the game they kind of lost control. I think Belieber was struggling and he lost the ball and he was obviously punished. And Fulham were obviously ruthless. They didn't have too many opportunities, but when it came, they took it. But obviously there was a bit of controversy as well with João Paulinho, the goal scorer, not seeing red earlier in the game for an elbow on Pascal Gross. So there's an argument that potentially had a big impact on the game. De Zerbi didn't really want to get kind of involved in that discussion. He just wanted to concentrate on the performance, obviously. Understandably, but inside he must have been really angry about that decision.
You've also mentioned there that Albion are now winless in 4 in the Premier League off the back of that draw with Fulham. I know that obviously De Zerbi has been a magician while he's been at the club, but should the Seagulls supporters be concerned at this run of form?
I wouldn't say concerned. I think it's just getting used to playing multiple competitions, I think. It's obviously all very new to the players. I think De Zerbi's still trying to find his best team. He's obviously made a lot of changes throughout the season. So it's all very new for the players, trying to adjust to playing on a Thursday and a Sunday. So it's I think it's going to take time to gel and for everything to fall into place. So I wouldn't say there's any room for concern. I think the defence has definitely improved in the last couple of games. Obviously, first clean sheet of the season against Ajax, which is brilliant. And if it wasn't for that cracking goal from João Paulinho, it could have been another clean sheet at the weekend as well. So I think there's definitely signs of improvement defensively. And they need to just find that balance between playing on a Thursday, playing on a Sunday, just keeping that same level of performance.
You mentioned there that defence needs or has improved in recent weeks. Are there any other areas of Brighton's play that needs improvement? Are they obvious signs of improvement that De Zerbi needs to kind of implement going ahead?
I think the loss of Moises Caicedo is still big. I think some of the goals that have been conceded this season, I don't think would have happened if he was there. I think Belieber is still settling into the role. I think he's had kind of a mixed bag really of performances so far. I think one game he looks fantastic, and the next he hasn't looked as good. I think it's just time. He needs time to really settle into the team really and to fill the boots of Caicedo, and it's obviously a huge gap in the team that was left. So I think there's some work that needs to be done there. I think in terms of getting him to his best really and to fill that role to his full potential. And obviously there's been a lot of injuries, a big problem at left back this season. Purvis is been out for a while now. His replacement Solly March getting a serious injury. So I think they might want to look in January transfer market to replace get someone in at left back potentially. Obviously, Lamptey's not been reliable because he's been injured quite a lot already. He's brilliant when he plays, and then he's out for a while after that. So I think definitely need to maybe focus on getting someone in at left back and try and bolster those positions as well.
And also on the player front as well, I've seen today that Jason Steele, the goalkeeper, signed a new contract to Brighton. Are you surprised about that, considering Bart Verbruggen, although he hasn't started in recent weeks, has kind of been lauded as the future of Brighton's goalkeeping department?
Yeah, I mean, the goalkeeping situation is quite confusing, really. I think it's a strange one. Obviously, you never really know who he's going to choose from game to game. And I've always said that I think teams do benefit from having one goalkeeper you can rely on. You know who's going to play, and you can build the team around how they play. And I don't necessarily think changing them frequently could help. Obviously, who am I to say that? But I think it's a tricky one. It's a tricky one, I think. But I think Jason Steele has done a really good job. Obviously, he was favoured over Robert Sanchez last season, and that saw Sanchez move to Chelsea. And now he's obviously been rotating that role with Bart Verbruggen. And I wouldn't say either player has been outstanding so far this season. They both had good moments and some poor moments. But yeah, it's an interesting one. Obviously, De Serbi's shown his faith in Steele on more than one occasion, and I think he does love him as a player, and he really does suit his playing style. So no, I wouldn't say I'm surprised he's given him a new contract. But it will be interesting to see as the season goes on, if he's going to remain as the 50-50 part one, or if he's going to start bringing in Verbruggen to play more often as he gets more experienced.
I was going to ask you that. Would you like De Zerbi to just come out and say, this is my number one goalkeeper for this season, no more rotation? Because surely that must breed a little bit of uncertainty of defence, not knowing who you're going to be playing in front of.
Yeah, no, I agree, absolutely. I would like to see that. I would like to see him decide on one that will play, even if it's one that will play in the league and one that will play in Europe. Even then, you know kind of what to expect, you know how to prepare for the games. I think that would be a good way forward. I think De Zerbi did say at the start of the season that he felt Jason Steele deserved to be in Europe because he helped Brighton to achieve that historic kind of achievement in the club. But he then said Verbruggen also deserved to be, because it was part of the reason why he joined the club, because of being in Europe. So he felt he kind of had a responsibility to give both players minutes in Europe. So he I think that does play on his mind a little bit, trying to do what's best for the players and trying to make them happy. And I guess that has worked. I think you see how much the players love him and how much they want to do their best for him, and you can't really argue against that. But I think maybe he does have to be ruthless if he wants to get the best out of them this season and really try and get some more clean sheets, because obviously one clean sheet this season is obviously not ideal. And I think it could help just having a goalkeeper that you can trust and rely on to be the number one, and the defence will obviously benefit from that as well.
Going back to the Brighton v Fulham game, in the BBC's post-match write-up, they said the Seagulls were struggling to compete on multiple fronts, and fatigue and rotation, could be starting to take their toll as they compete in Europe. You've kind of touched it on a little bit already, Sam, but is there any truth to this? It does kind of seem a little bit hyperbolic, in my opinion, what the BBC Sport have said.
Yeah, no, I don't think it's been a huge issue in terms of that. It doesn't look like the players are being fatigued as such. Obviously, there's been constant changes to the team, so we're constantly seeing new players playing on Thursday to Sunday. So in that respect, you'd expect them to be fresh and ready to play. I think it's just time. I think time to get used to playing, because it's only been 3 games they've played in Europe so far. So I think it's very early doors, I think. And I think it's just a matter of time, really, before they get used to it and you can start to see better performances in the league to benefit from that as well.
Pascal Gross, he reached a notable milestone on Sunday. Der Kaiser, as he's affectionately known, notched up his 200th Premier League appearance at Brighton against Fulham. Where does Gross rank among Albion's greats, Sam? The $3 million that Albion paid for him all the way back in 2017 looks like the steal of the century now, doesn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. He's a club legend. He's right out there, one of the very best signings they've ever made. 100%. It's incredible, really. You think how much Brighton have changed since they promoted to the Premier League, and he's been that ever-present man in the team. Can play pretty much anywhere on the pitch. He's so versatile, so reliable. barely puts a foot wrong. I think he does a Cruyff turn in every single game, so he's reliable in that sense as well. But he's a fantastic player, and it's excellent that he stayed, because I think there was a time a few years ago where he was considering leaving. I remember doing an interview after the game where it didn't sound like he was going to be at the club for much longer, and I think a real kind of turning point moment, that one, where he kind of committed his future to the club. And it's so brilliant that he did, really, and so great the club managed to convince him to stay, because he was a huge part of them getting to Europe. And obviously he's got his international caps as well as a result. So, brilliant player, and hope he stays until the end of his career.
Looking ahead to the future, this Saturday sees Albion travel to a resurgent Everton in the Premier League. How do you see this one playing out, Sam? I noticed that the Toffees have won 3 of their last 5 in the Premier League, so it's another tricky assignment for the Seagulls. Yeah,
really tough game against Everton that have had a couple of good performances. They looked decent against Liverpool in the Merseyside derby. Obviously, were hard done by VAR on the day, and they followed that up with a great win over West Ham. So they're on a good little run of form. Sean Dyche is not a manager that Brighton like coming up against. They've never had that much joy against him. So it's a really tough game. I think obviously last season they had the biggest defeat of the season was at the Amex when Everton just ran riot. So they would want to put that behind them. And I think they need an early goal, because I think the longer the game's 0-0, or even if Everton get in the lead, they're so good at defending that, so good at putting men behind the ball and keeping hold of what they have. So I think Brighton really do need to start on the front foot, get an early goal, and then Everton will then have to come out and try and get an equaliser. And that's when you can maybe hit them and seal the game. So a really tough game for Brighton, but a game they really, really should be winning after such a long time without winning the league. It'd be a good way to get back up and running again.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for that, Sam. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, we'll be discussing all things Crawley Town. Saturday saw Crawley Town go down 2-1 at struggling Forest Green Rovers, but the majority of the talk this week has surrounded the future of Reds boss Scott Lindsay. Mark, if you can you give us a little lowdown on the story and the speculation that's been swirling around Broadfield Stadium this week?
Well, yeah, it's been a funny old week, because I was actually on holiday last week, and I came back to just I didn't know what was going on, but yeah. So Gillingham, they obviously sacked Neil Harris at the beginning of October, and initially straight away Scott Lindsay was connected with the move, because Scott Lindsay lives in Kent, he's played for Gillingham, his family have got a history with Gillingham, and it was just the easy connection to make. And then when I've come back off holiday, suddenly there's reports that he's had 2 interviews with the club and could be leaving, and was the absolute favourite. I was surprised, because I just assumed it was just early speculation, obvious connection. But then suddenly, and the stories actually came from very good sources and journalists I trust. So there must have been some weight behind it. And and then on Monday when I spoke to Scott, there was never any explicit chat about whether he had these interviews or anything like that. But he just wanted it done. He just wanted Gillingham to make an appointment. I'm assuming he was waiting to hear at that point. I don't know. That's me just assuming. And then obviously, it has resolved itself, luckily, before this weekend's game against Notts County in the FA Cup.
Well, you speak about and it resolving itself. It well and truly resolved itself when the Gills announced ex-Spurs and Birmingham midfielder Stephen Clements as their new permanent manager. How have the Reds fans reacted to this news, Mark? They must be absolutely delighted that they still have the main man in charge.
Well, you'd think so, wouldn't you? But no, as we know with any football fan, they think anyone who joins their club must stay at that club for the rest of their career. And it's not all of them. There are some fans who've gone on and said, right, good, out the way, let's focus on winning again now, because they've had a pretty poor run. We'll get onto that in a bit. But a lot of them are like, right, he's got a lot to do to win our trust back now. And it's just like, really? You've had such a good relationship. The Scott Lindsay and the fans have had such a good relationship up until this point. And just because he's gone for another job, if he has gone, I mean, we still haven't had it confirmed officially by any of the parties that he did go for it. It could have just been rumours and people just trying to wind things up. But it's just like, players managers are always going to move on. They're always going to be looking to further their careers. And Crawley fans will hate me for saying this. Gillingham are a bigger club. They've got a bigger history. And by all accounts, with their new chairman and that, they've got a lot more money. So actual sort of like as a career progression move, it is a good move. And Crawley fans won't like me for saying, or some won't. But I think a lot of fans have seen just the realistic side of it and just like, right, okay, fair play to him. He tried to progress his career, but we'll move on now and he'll focus on Crawley. But I'm not going to profess to say that I know Scott Lindsay better than anyone else, because I don't. But I've spent a lot of time with Scott, and I've spoken to him on the record, I've spoken to him off the record. And whatever anyone want to accuse him of, one thing you can't communicate is not being committed. He will be committed to the job he's in until the very last minute he's not in that job. He's not, just because he might have had an interview with someone else doesn't mean he wasn't fully focused. I mean, when I spoke to him on Monday, which was, I think I understand he gave the players a day off on Monday because they didn't have a midweek game. He was sitting watching Notts County games all day, and he was coming up with this strategy and plans. And at that point, we weren't clear on whether Gillingham had their man in place or not. So even if he did think, I still got a chance of getting this Gillingham job, he was still there planning what they were going to do against Notts County. I mean, football fans are football fans. They're a fickle bunch. If Crawley were top of the league after last weekend, and it still came out that he'd got 2 interviews, would Crawley fans be moaning as much? It's because they've had a pretty poor October. And but we know what football fans are like. All they want is loyalty, and the moment that is questioned, some are going to turn. So, but yeah, all it will take is a few more wins now, and they'll be back. He'll be back in everyone's good books.
We'll come back onto the Crawley's October in a minute, but from my personal point of view, I kind of feel that because of Scott Lindsay's connection with Gillingham, Mark, it's not a surprise that he may have interviewed. But the way you've spoken about the fans and the fan reaction to it, do you think he might just need to release like a statement just to saying that I'm 100% committed? Or would that be probably, I don't know, like an admission of guilt almost? I don't know.
It's a funny one, isn't it? Because, I mean, from my point of view, yes, he absolutely should do that from my professional point of view. But if he doesn't do it, I could understand why. He just wants to get on with his job, focus on Crawley Town and get on with it. But I think for him to be able to do that now, he does need to come out and just draw a line under the matter. Just say, either deny it, I didn't go for a job, but these are all rubbish rumours. Or, yes, I went for 2 interviews. Gillingham's close to my heart. People know that. It would have been, people must be able to see with my family links and where I live and that it would have been a good move for me. But I am now and always have been focused on Crawley. I mean, I've written it for him. There you go, Scott. You can have that for free. I do think he needs to, come out and say something. Some fans won't just ignore it anyway, whatever he says. But I think some fans will say, okay, fair play. Yeah, I understand where you're coming from. Right, draw a line underneath it, move on.
Well, the loss at Forest Green Rovers, as mentioned, meant Crawley Town went the entirety of October without picking up a win, and it was in stark contrast to September, where Crawley won all 5 League 2 games. I think we've kind of covered this, but what would you put this poor month down to, Mark?
Well, I think there has been distractions and noise that haven't helped at all. But also, if you look at, they've had some quite tough fixtures, going away to Doncaster and Walsall on a Tuesday night. Playing Crewe, who are scoring for absolute fun at the moment. And some other tough games. And you also look at the Doncaster game, Liam Kelly got a head injury and then he had to miss a game. The Wrexham game he missed at home. And then Ben Gladwin, he went off in that Wrexham game as well, injured quite early on. And they're 2 massively influential players. And Liam Kelly has been one of the best players in League 2 this year. I don't think anyone can argue with that. Ben Gladwin just has that leadership on the pitch. So, and then you've had Kellen Gordon coming back from injury as well. So there has been in September and August, there wasn't that many changes to the lineup. In October, he's had to been forced into changes and try different things. And I think that's had a big effect on it. That coupled with some really tough fixtures as well. So, he would have expected more. I mean, any home game, he lost to Crewe and Wrexham both at home, but 2 games that I imagine Scott thought he could probably win. So they were two disappointing results. But speaking to Scott, he's still happy with the performances. The first half against Forest Green, I saw the highlights. They absolutely battered them. The keeper had pulled off a couple of worldy saves. So he was, I think the fact that he's had a few injuries, tough fixtures, I think that he'll be back, and this distraction around Gillingham. But he will say Gillingham's had nothing to do with what's happened on the pitch. But we all know that might not be the case. It's going to be on people's minds, isn't it? But,
as I say, we've kind of touched on this very, very quickly on the special FA Cup episode we did with Horsham manager Dom De Paula. But as you mentioned, Crawley at Notts County in the first round of the FA Cup on Saturday. Is a win vital to kind of get the feel-good factor back at the club?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if they go now and win on Saturday, and then they've got the EFL trophy on Tuesday as well, and then they're, I can't remember what the fixture is on November the 11th, I think they're Accrington Stanley at home. Yeah, I think if they can get wins in those games, then suddenly everything's rosy again, isn't it? And fans will move on. But yeah, it won't. It's a tough tie, isn't it, away at Notts County? But Notts County, I think, as I said yesterday, they said that's all out. They want to get promotion. They want back-to-back promotions this year. So the FA Cup might be the one thing they sacrifice. They are not financially in trouble or anything, as far as I'm aware. They've got a big budget, so the prize money at this stage in the FA Cup, not a big deal to them. But it is the FA Cup, so
yeah.
Like Dom De Paula said yesterday to us, didn't he, that he doesn't understand why any team wouldn't want to do well in the FA Cup or progress as far as they can. So, it will definitely, if they can win on Saturday, it's a tough ask, but they are capable of it. It will definitely start bringing the mood back up, and then you go and beat Aston Villa on Tuesday night in the EFL Trophy, progress to the next round. Everyone's happy.
And he'll be the Messiah again, won't he?
He will indeed, yeah.
We'd also like to wish the very best of Sussex luck to Horsham and Worthing, who are in FA Cup first round action at Barnsley and Everton Town over the weekend. The Hornets travel up to Oakwood on Friday evening, while Worthing take on Alfreton on Saturday afternoon. I will take a very, very quick stroll down Steve Bone's score prediction corner, starting with Everton Brighton. Sam Morton, how do you see this one going?
Yeah, as I say, it's going to be a tough game for Brighton, but I can see them winning. I think they're due a win in the league. I think they'll get an early goal and they'll nick a second one. Everton will get one back. It won't be enough. So 2-1 Brighton.
Mr. Dunford, what about yourself?
I'm going for a draw in this one. I think Everton, because they had that sort of landmark result last week against West Ham, I think they're going to be riding high in there. It's going to be tough. I think Everton will take the lead and Brighton will struggle to break them down, but they will eventually.
And are you predicting FA Cup success for Crawley at Meadow Lane?
I am, yeah. I'm going to go for a 2-1 win for Crawley. It's going to be a tough one, but I think with everything settled now, I think the good times are going to be back.
Sam Morton, are the good times going to be rolling on at the Broadfield Stadium after Saturday?
I would like to think so. I think I'll be less optimistic. I think, Notts County are, they're obviously a really good team, really strong, and I think 2-1 Notts County. Let's say.
Well, we shall wait and see. Thank you very much for your time, chaps. As ever, you can catch up with all the latest sports news, covering everything we have talked about today at sussexworld.co.uk/sport. And you can watch more excellent videos on shotstv.com and Freeview channel 276. Thank you all for listening, and we will see you all next week.